The author includes the descriptions of the sunset, the clouds, and the hemlock shadows, lines 34 to 36, primarily too. So let's go ahead up here, underline these. So we're starting from sunset, clouds, and hemlock shadows. Okay, so this, and that. So we want to know why the author includes these descriptions. What is the function? What is the goal? What is the author trying to do? Well, let's read this in context. So this is when they are kind of sharing those experiences in nature, walking around, looking at things. And let's jump in at line 31. The fact that admiration for his learning mingled with Maddie's wonder at what he taught was not the least part of his pleasure. And there were other sensations, less definable but more exquisite, which drew them together with a shock of silent joy. The cold red of sunset behind winter hills, the flight of cloud flocks over slopes of golden stubble, or the intensely blue shadows of hemlocks on sunlit snow. When she said to him once, "It looks just as if it was painted," it seemed to Ethan that the art of definition could go no farther, and that words had at last been found to utter his secret soul. So why does the author include this? Well, just showing how both the narrator, Ethan, and Maddie are both sharing in this really, really detailed perception of nature, right? The cold red sunset. Look at the imagery here. The cold red sunset, the flight of cloud flocks over golden stubble, intensely blue shadows, right? Very focused, specific, detailed imagery that both of the characters are sharing in. So let's go to the choices. Is this suggesting the peacefulness of the natural world? I think this is a trap choice for many students, because we read this and we say, oh yeah, this seems pretty peaceful. You got your sunset, these clouds, it's peaceful. Yes, true, it's peaceful, but is that why the author has included this description here? Is that the main reason? And no, it's about the relationship between these two characters more generally. Is it emphasizing the acuteness of two character sensations? So again, acuteness, it's a word we might need to know. It means that kind of fine sensitivity towards these kinds of perceptions, right? Sensitivity, essentially. And that's what's going on here, right? They both share in this, as I said in the previous discussion, in this perception of nature in a very fine, sensitive manner. So that looks pretty good. Does it foreshadow the declining fortunes of two characters? So here, in order to evaluate this choice, we probably would have to just finish the passage. So I might be a little sketched out by this until I finished it. But once we finished it, we'll realize they don't really talk about either of them having declining fortunes generally. Maybe Ethan a little bit, because he gets a little bit depressed because maybe she doesn't like him back. But nonetheless, it's not about both characters. Is it trying to offer a sense of how fleeting time can be? Totally irrelevant. They don't mention anything about fleeting time. That would be, if you pick that one, that's probably just like you putting your own interpretation on it rather than sticking really close to the text. So if we stick close to the text, we see that the answer here is going to be choice B. We've only done a few questions so far, and so far, as we saw with this passage, seems pretty straightforward, pretty standard in terms of the question types, the evidence you have to marshal to support your choices. Pretty standard. The one thing I might say, we've seen some use of vocabulary in some of these choices, like acuteness. A lot of people may not know what that means in this context. Previous question, we saw receptivity, I believe it was. So vocab will matter, but perhaps this could be one of those situations where we might actually lean towards the choices with vocab words, because it's likely that that will be an answer. We'll see. That might be a strategy here. But so far we've seen that vocabulary hasn't totally disappeared from these questions.